The Great Hall of Nexus Prime stretched wider than any building on Earth. 17 different species sat in their assigned sections, each group looking nothing like the others. Some had scales that caught the artificial light. Others had fur that changed colors with their moods. A few looked like walking trees with too many arms. But they all had one thing in common. They all thought they were better than the humans who wanted to join their club. Ambassador Zixthan stood at the center podium. His blue skin gleamed under the bright lights as he held up a thick data pad. The information on that pad would decide Earth's future. Every eye in the room focused on him as he began to speak. "Honored council members," Zixthan said in his smooth voice. "Today we review the application of the species called humans from the planet they call Earth. Our observation: teams have spent 30 years studying these creatures. The report is complete." A low murmur ran through the hall. 30 years was a long time to watch any species. Most applications took only 5 years to process. But Earth had been special. Earth had been confusing. Council member Thekmore leaned forward in his chair. His rock-like face showed interest. "What did your teams discover, Ambassador? Are these humans ready to join civilized society?" Zixthan touched his datapad. A large screen appeared in the air above him. Pictures of Earth filled the display. Green forests, blue oceans, cities full of tall buildings. It looked peaceful. It looked safe. "The humans have achieved what many species never accomplish," Zixthan announced. "They have tamed their world completely. Look at these images. No dangerous predators roam their lands. No savage beasts threaten their cities. They have created perfect harmony with nature." More pictures appeared. Humans walking through parks. Children playing in open fields. Families having meals outside without any fear. The council members nodded with approval. This looked like civilization. "But what about their history?" asked Council Member Velsera. Her tentacles moved nervously as she spoke. "Our early scans showed evidence of great conflicts, wars, violence, destruction, all in their past," Zixthan replied quickly. "Yes, humans once fought terrible wars. Yes, they once killed without reason. But they learned, they grew, they became civilized. The proof is in what they did to their apex predators." The screen changed again. Now it showed pictures of wolves. Gray wolves running through snow. Black wolves howling at the moon. Brown wolves hunting in packs. But these were old pictures. Very old. "Behold the creature called wolf," Zixthan said. "Once these beasts ruled Earth's wilderness. They hunted in coordinated groups. They showed no mercy to their prey. They were the perfect killing machines of their world. But look what happened to them." New pictures appeared. These showed wolves in small cages, wolves with numbers tattooed on their ears, signs that read, "Endangered Species Protection Program." The count at the bottom of each picture was heartbreaking. Only a few hundred wolves remained on the entire planet. The humans eliminated their apex predators. Zixthan continued. "They drove the wolves to near extinction. This proves beyond doubt that humans have conquered their savage nature. A species that destroys its own predators has learned to live in peace." Council member Gextor raised one of his forearms. "What about their current military forces? Our scans detect weapons, soldiers, war machines." "Ceremonial only," Zixthan waved dismissively. "Humans maintain small defensive forces, yes, but these are for show. For tradition. They have no real enemies left to fight. Their own world is tame. They pose no threat to anyone." The council members looked at each other. Quiet conversations started in different languages. Some species clicked their approval. Others hummed in agreement. A few tapped their feet in the rhythm that meant satisfaction. "I have reviewed all the data," announced Council Leader Morden from his elevated seat. "The evidence is clear. Humans have successfully domesticated themselves. They eliminated their predators. They ended their wars. They live in harmony with their environment. This is exactly the kind of species we want in our council." "What classification do you recommend?" asked Thekmore. "Agricultural and mining sectors," Zixthan replied without hesitation. "Humans show excellent cooperation skills. They work well in groups. They follow orders from authority figures. They will make ideal laborers for our outer colonies. Any objections to this classification? Morden called out. The hall remained silent. No one spoke against the recommendation. Why would they? The evidence was clear. Humans were safe. Humans were tame. Humans were perfect for doing the hard work that other species preferred to avoid. Then it is decided, Morden declared. Earth is hereby granted restricted membership in the Galactic Council. They will receive standard communication equipment and basic trade access. Their first diplomatic mission will arrive within 6 months to receive their formal assignment. The council members began to disperse. Most of them had already forgotten about the new species from Earth. After all, humans were just another group of domesticated workers. Nothing special, nothing dangerous, nothing to worry about. But far across the galaxy, in an underground facility buried deep in the mountains of Colorado, Colonel Jake Murphy sat reading the transmission that had just arrived from space. The message was simple and direct. Earth had been accepted into the Galactic Council. Earth had been classified as tame. Earth had been assigned to agricultural and mining work. Jake leaned back in his chair and started to laugh. Dr. Lisa White looked up from her computer screen with confusion. "What's so funny?" she asked. Jake handed her the message. Lisa read it quickly, her eyes growing wider with each line. When she finished, she looked at Jake with disbelief. "They think we eliminated wolves because we're peaceful?" she said. "That's what it looks like," Jake replied, still grinning. "Should we correct their mistake? Explain that we actually work with wolves? Tell them about our conservation programs?" Jake stood up and walked to the window. Outside, snow covered the mountains. Somewhere out there, wolf packs were running. Through the wilderness. Wild, free, dangerous. Just the way nature intended. "No," Jake said quietly. "I think we should let them keep thinking that. At least for now." "What do you have in mind?" Jake turned back to Lisa with a smile that would have made a wolf proud. "I think it's time our new alien friends met some real diplomats. The kind with 4 legs and very sharp teeth." 3 months had passed since the Galactic Council's decision. Ambassador Zixton waited at Docking Bay 7 on Nexus Prime. His blue skin showed patches of nervous yellow as he checked his timepiece for the 5th time. The humans were late. "Perhaps they got lost," suggested his assistant, a small furry creature named Pipton. "New species often have trouble with galactic navigation." Zixton shook his head. The coordinates were simple. Even primitive species can follow basic jump routes. He paused, then added, "Maybe they're just nervous. First time meeting advanced civilizations can be overwhelming." A deep rumble echoed through the docking bay. Both aliens looked up as a massive ship approached the station. The vessel was unlike anything in the Council's fleet. It had sharp angles and dark metal plating. No decorative elements. No artistic flourishes. Just efficient, brutal functionality. "That's not what I expected," Pipton whispered. The ship settled onto the landing platform with surprising grace for something so large. Steam hissed from cooling vents along its hull. A name was painted on the side in bold white letters, ESV Freedom, a loading ramp lowered from the ship's belly. Zixton straightened his ceremonial robes and prepared to meet Earth's diplomatic team. He expected to see soft-looking humans in fancy clothes, bureaucrats, accountants, maybe some scientists with thick glasses and nervous smiles. Instead, 4 figures walked down the ramp. They moved with perfect coordination, like dancers who had practiced the same routine 1,000 times. But these were not dancers. The leader was a tall human male with gray hair and scars on his hands. His clothes were simple but well made. His eyes swept the docking bay like he was looking for threats. Behind him walked a human female with dark hair pulled back in a tight knot. She carried herself with quiet confidence. The third human was lean and weathered, like someone who spent most of his time outdoors. His eyes were pale blue and seemed to notice everything at once. The fourth was a human female wearing clothes that smelled faintly of animals and medicine. "Ambassador Zixton?" the gray-haired human asked as he approached. I'm Captain Ben Stone. This is Dr. Amy Fox, Sam Rivers, and Kate Nash. We represent Earth's diplomatic mission. Zixthon blinked in surprise. These humans looked nothing like the peaceful farmers he had expected. They looked like, well, he wasn't sure what they looked like, but it made him uncomfortable. Welcome to Nexus Prime, Zixthon said, falling back on diplomatic protocol. I trust your journey was pleasant? Educational, Captain Stone replied with a small smile. We learned a lot about galactic shipping lanes. Very useful information. Before Zixthon could respond, a new sound came from the ship. A low howl that made every alien in the docking bay freeze with primitive terror. It was a sound that spoke to something deep in their evolutionary memory. The sound of a predator calling to its pack. What was that? Pipton squeaked, hiding behind his superior. Dr. Fox stepped forward. Those are our cultural attachés. I hope you prepared suitable quarters for them as well. Cultural attachés? Zixthon repeated, confusion clear in his voice. Of course, Dr. Fox said calmly. Surely the Council's research showed that humans don't make important decisions without consulting our advisors. More howls echoed from the ship. Different voices joining the first, harmonizing in a song that made the artificial gravity feel heavier. The files didn't mention, Zixthon stammered. The beings who taught us civilization, Sam Rivers said quietly. His pale eyes were fixed on something behind the aliens. The ones who showed us how to work together, how to hunt together, how to survive together. Kate Nash nodded. We couldn't possibly conduct diplomatic negotiations without them. That would be like trying to breathe without air. The howling stopped. The silence that followed was somehow worse than the noise. Zixthon turned slowly toward the ship, dreading what he might see. 12 shapes moved down the ramp. They flowed like liquid shadow, placing each paw with careful precision. Gray fur, black fur, brown fur, marked with white. Yellow eyes that reflected the station's lights like tiny stars. Wolves. Real wolves. Wild wolves. Predators that should have been extinct. Impossible, Zixthon breathed. The files showed, the data proved, you eliminated them. Eliminated? Captain Stone looked genuinely confused. Who told you that? The endangered species numbers, the protection programs, the small populations. Dr. Fox smiled. Oh, those. Yes, we had to be very careful about breeding programs. We couldn't let the wrong wolves reproduce. We needed the smart ones, the ones who could adapt, the ones who could learn new tricks. The largest wolf, a massive gray male with intelligent eyes, walked directly to Captain Stone. The animal sat beside the human like a soldier awaiting orders. The other wolves spread out in a loose formation that somehow covered all the exits from the docking bay. This is Ghost, Captain Stone said, resting his hand on the wolf's head. He's our lead diplomatic advisor. The others are his pack, his family, his team. Zixthon's skin had turned a pale green. These are apex predators. Yes, Kate Nash agreed. The finest Earth has ever produced. 50,000 years of evolution. Thousands of generations of selective breeding, all to create the perfect partnership. Partnership, Pipton whispered. Sam Rivers crouched down and extended his hand toward one of the smaller wolves. The animal approached without fear, sniffing his fingers before allowing itself to be petted. Wolves taught us everything important, Sam said, softly. How to hunt as a team, how to communicate without words, how to be loyal to the pack, how to survive in a world full of things that want to kill you. Dr. Fox pulled out a data pad and showed it to Zixthon. The screen displayed complex charts and graphs. These are behavioral studies, she explained. 50 years of research into pack dynamics, leadership structures, cooperative hunting strategies, territory management, resource allocation. Everything the Council thinks they invented, wolves perfected millions of years ago. Captain Stone stood up, Ghost rising with him. The Council classified us as tame because you thought we eliminated our predators. But you made one small mistake in your research. What mistake? Zixthon asked, though he was beginning to suspect he didn't want to know the answer. Captain Stone's smile was sharp and cold. We didn't eliminate our predators, Ambassador. We became them. Ghost's yellow eyes fixed on Zixthon. The wolf's lips pulled back slightly, revealing white teeth that could crush bone. It wasn't a threat. It was a statement of fact. Now, Captain Stone continued, shall we discuss Earth's diplomatic status? I believe there might be some changes needed to our original assignment. The council chamber felt different when the humans entered. Ambassador Zixthon noticed it immediately. The usual chatter among the 17 species had died to whispers. Every eye followed the 4 humans as they walked to their assigned seats. But it wasn't the humans that made everyone nervous. It was the wolves. Ghost padded silently beside Captain Stone. The other 11 wolves spread out around the chamber's edges. They didn't threaten anyone. They didn't growl or show teeth. They simply existed in the space like living shadows. But their presence changed everything. Council Leader Morden cleared his throat. Welcome, representatives of Earth. We are pleased to discuss your planet's integration into our agricultural programs. Captain Stone remained standing. Thank you, Council Leader. Before we discuss our assignments, we'd like to demonstrate some human techniques. Our agricultural methods might surprise you. That's not necessary, Morden replied quickly. We have standard procedures for new member species. Your role has been determined. Dr. Fox stepped forward. With respect, Council Leader, humans learn by showing rather than telling. It's how we've always worked with our partners. She gestured toward the wolves. May we use your botanical gardens for a brief demonstration? Nervous glances passed between the council members. The botanical gardens were Nexus Prime's pride. Rare plants from across the galaxy grew there in perfect harmony. Delicate creatures lived among the flowers, tended by the Velnari Gardening Guild. I suppose a small demonstration would be acceptable, Morden said slowly. But please be careful. Those gardens contain irreplaceable specimens. Of course, Captain Stone agreed. Ghost River Shadow, show them how we farm. 3 wolves moved toward the chamber's exit. They walked with purpose but no urgency, like workers heading to do a familiar job. Ambassador Zixthon felt his skin turn yellow with worry. Perhaps we should observe from here through the viewing screens. Nonsense, Sam Rivers said. His pale eyes were bright with something that might have been amusement. You need to see this up close. Understanding requires participation. The group moved through Nexus Prime's corridors toward the botanical gardens. The wolves led the way, somehow knowing the route without being told. Other aliens pressed themselves against the walls as the procession passed. Some species had never seen predators before. Others remembered them from their homeworld's nightmares. The botanical gardens stretched across 3 levels of the station. Artificial sunlight streamed through transparent walls. Water trickled from carefully designed streams. The air smelled of flowers and growing things. Small creatures moved among the plants. They looked like flying jewels with gossamer wings. The Velnari called them song sprites and considered them living art. Dozens of them fluttered between the flowers, their tiny voices creating music that sounded like wind chimes. Beautiful, Kate Nash said softly. They're perfectly adapted to this environment. The song sprites have lived here for 200 years, Zixthon said proudly. They're completely tame, completely safe. They know no predators exist in this space. Dr. Fox nodded thoughtfully. Interesting. No natural selection pressure. No survival instincts. They've forgotten how to be afraid. Captain Stone looked at Ghost. The big wolf sat perfectly still, but his yellow eyes tracked every flying creature. His packmates had spread out along the garden's edges. They moved like liquid flowing from shadow to shadow. This is how humans learned to farm, Captain Stone said calmly. Not by planting crops in rows, but by understanding ecosystems, by working with natural patterns instead of against them. We don't understand, Morden said. Where are your agricultural tools? Your planting equipment? Right here, Sam Rivers replied, pointing at the wolves. Ghost rose to his feet. The song sprites continued their musical chatter, unaware that anything had changed. They had no instincts to warn them, no genetic memory of danger. They were perfect examples of creatures that had forgotten how to survive. What happened next took less than 30 seconds. Ghost moved first. Not running, but flowing forward like gray lightning. The song sprites scattered in panic, but they had nowhere to go. River and Shadow had already moved into position. The garden's carefully designed layout became a trap with no escape routes. The wolves worked without sound. No barking, no growling, just efficient, coordinated movement. They drove the song sprites toward the center of the garden where Ghost waited. Not to kill them, but to demonstrate something far more important. Control. When the demonstration ended, every song sprite huddled in a tight group near the central fountain. They were alive, but terrified. Their pretty songs had become frightened, chirping. The wolves sat in a perfect triangle around them, close enough to strike but choosing not to. "This is impossible," Zixthan whispered. "The song sprites have lived here for centuries. Nothing has ever hunted them. They don't know how to act like prey." "They do now," Dr. Fox said quietly. "Genetic memory runs deep. Fear is older than civilization. These creatures remember what their ancestors knew, even if they've never experienced it themselves." Captain Stone walked to the center of the garden. The song sprites pressed closer together as he approached. "This is human agriculture, Council Leader. We don't just grow things, we shape ecosystems. We create balance through pressure and release, through predation and protection." Kate Nash pulled out her datapad. "We've been studying your station for the past hour. Ghost's pack has mapped every corridor, every vent, every service tunnel. They know where every species sleeps, where they eat, where they feel safe." "Why?" Morden's voice had become very small. "Because that's what farmers do," Sam Rivers explained. "We learn the territory. We understand the population. We identify the weak points and the strong points. We figure out how everything connects." Dr. Fox showed her datapad to the council members. Charts and graphs filled the screen. Pack hunting. Strategies translate perfectly to resource management. Territory control becomes trade route optimization. Predator-prey relationships become economic models. "Your council has created the perfect garden," Captain Stone continued. 17 species living in artificial harmony. No competition. No pressure. No growth. Just like these song sprites, you've forgotten what drives evolution. Ghost stood and walked slowly toward the council members. Not threatening, just demonstrating proximity. The wolf stopped exactly close enough to be unsettling, but not close enough to be called aggressive. "We didn't eliminate our wolves," Captain Stone said. "We learned from them. They taught us that cooperation isn't the absence of predation, it's predation perfected. Working together doesn't mean being safe, it means being more dangerous." The song sprites began to sing again, but their music was different now. Sadder, more complex. They had learned something in 30 seconds that they couldn't unlearn. The galaxy was not safe. Predators existed, and sometimes they looked like friends. "So," Captain Stone said, his hand resting gently on Ghost's head, "let's discuss Earth's real assignment, because farming is exactly what we do best. We just have a different definition of crops." The meeting lasted 6 hours. By the end of it, 3 council members had requested medical attention. 2 others had locked themselves in their quarters. Ambassador Zixthan sat in the corner, his blue skin showing patches of sickly green. It started when Council Leader Morden announced that the human delegation would be confined to their quarters. "For the safety of all species aboard this station," he declared, "your animals are too dangerous to roam freely." Captain Stone had simply smiled. "Animals? I thought we explained these aren't animals, they're diplomatic advisors, cultural attachés, partners. Call them whatever you want," Morden snapped. "They will be contained." "If you insist," Dr. Fox said calmly. "But I should warn you, wolves don't like being caged. It makes them creative." The first sign of trouble came 2 hours later. Security. Chief Gracton contacted the council chambers in a panic. "The wolves have vanished," he reported. "Our sensors show them entering their assigned quarters, but they're not there anymore." "Check the corridors," Morden ordered. "We are checking. They're not in the corridors either. They're just gone." Sam Rivers leaned back in his chair. "Wolves are good at that. Disappearing. It's one of their oldest skills." "Where are they?" Sixthan demanded. "Around," Kate Nash replied unhelpfully. "Wolves don't really believe in boundaries the way other species do. They think in terms of territory, not rooms." The second report came 30 minutes later. A Velnari merchant claimed he had seen yellow eyes watching him from an air vent. A hive cluster drone insisted something was following him through the maintenance shafts. A Zephyrian trader swore he heard breathing behind the walls of his shop. "This is impossible," Security Chief Gracton insisted over the communication system. "We've sealed all the vents. We've locked down the maintenance areas. Nothing can move through this station without our sensors detecting it." Dr. Fox pulled out her datapad and showed it to the council members. The screen displayed a three-dimensional map of Nexus Prime. Red dots moved through the image like blood cells through veins. "Ghost and his pack have been mapping your station since we arrived," she explained. "Every tunnel, every shaft, every space between the walls. Wolves see architecture differently than civilized species. They don't see barriers, they see pathways." "Turn off your tracking devices," Morden ordered. "We're not tracking them," Captain Stone said. "They're reporting back to us. Every few minutes, one of them returns to share what they've learned. Then they disappear again. Learned about what? Everything. Where your food comes from, where your power originates, where your air gets processed, where your waste goes, how your security systems work, who has authority and who just pretends to." Council member Thekmore slammed his rocky fist on the table. "Are you threatening us?" "Not at all," Sam Rivers said. "We're demonstrating this is how wolves hunt. First, they study the territory. They learn every trail, every hiding spot, every weakness. They identify the strong members of the herd and the weak ones. They watch patterns of movement. They understand the social structure." "We're not prey," Velsara protested, her tentacles writhing nervously. "Everyone's prey to something," Kate Nash observed. "The question is whether you know what's hunting you." The third report made everyone go quiet. Ghost had appeared in Council Leader Morden's private office, not breaking in, not forcing entry, simply appearing. The wolf had sat behind Morden's desk for exactly 60 seconds, then vanished again. "How?" Morden's voice was barely a whisper. "Service elevator," Dr. Fox explained, checking her datapad. "Down 3 levels, through the waste processing center, up the emergency shaft, through the executive dining room's kitchen access, and into your office ventilation system. Ghost says you have interesting reading material on your desk. He can read." "Wolves are very intelligent, much more intelligent than most species realize. Ghost has been studying galactic politics for months. He finds your trade agreements particularly fascinating." Captain Stone stood up and walked to the chamber's main display screen. With a few touches, he brought up a map of the galaxy. Trade. Routes appeared as glowing lines between stars. "This is impressive work," he said admiringly. 17 species, hundreds of worlds, thousands of trade relationships. It must have taken centuries to build this network. "It did," Morden said proudly despite his fear. "We created the most stable economic system in galactic history." "Stable," Captain Stone repeated. "Yes, that's exactly the right word, like a herd of animals that follows the same path to water every day, same routes, same timing, same behavior patterns." He touched the screen again. New information appeared: shipping schedules, resource flows, economic dependencies. "Ghost's pack has been very busy," Captain Stone continued. "They've identified every critical node in your trade network, every single point of failure, every dependency that holds this whole system together." Dr. Fox joined him at the screen. "The hive cluster controls 60% of your agricultural production, but their ships follow predictable routes on fixed schedules. The Zephyrian mining operations provide 70% of your rare metals, But they only have 3 major extraction sites. The Velnari handle information distribution for the entire council, Sam Rivers added. All your communications flow through their systems. Very efficient. Also very vulnerable. Kate Nash pulled up more data. Your medical supplies come from 4 worlds. Your technology components come from 6. Your entertainment media comes from 2. Everything connected. Everything interdependent. Everything fragile. You're describing our greatest achievement, Zixthon said weakly. Galactic, cooperation, peaceful trade, mutual benefit. You're describing a perfect hunting ground, Captain Stone corrected. Predictable movements, known resources, clear hierarchies, established territories, no competition, no pressure, no adaptation. Council Leader Mordun stood up slowly. What do you want? Full membership in the Galactic Council, Captain Stone replied immediately. Equal voting rights, access to all trade networks, recognition as a major power. Impossible. Your agricultural workers, mining support, that's your classification. Dr. Fox smiled. Our classification is whatever we decide it is, unless you'd prefer to explain to your constituents why their food shipments stopped arriving, why their mining operations shut down, why their communication networks went dark. That's blackmail. That's negotiation, Sam Rivers said quietly. This is how it works when you're dealing with predators instead of prey. Ghost materialized beside Captain Stone. The big wolf had returned without anyone noticing his arrival. In his mouth he carried a small object. He dropped it on the conference table. It was Council Leader Mordun's personal security badge, the one that should have been locked in his private safe. Ghost wanted you to know that your security systems need improvement, Captain Stone said. Consider it a free consultation. The council members stared at the badge, then at Ghost, then at the humans who were no longer asking for permission. What happens if we refuse? Mordun asked. Captain Stone's smile was sharp and cold. Then you'll learn why Earth's wolves volunteered to be diplomats, because they're very good at teaching civilized species what the word tame really means. 6 months later, the galaxy looked very different. Captain Ben Stone walked through the corridors of Nexus Prime with Ghost at his side. Other species moved out of their way, but not from fear anymore. From respect, the kind of respect that prey, animals show to predators who have chosen not to hunt them. Today, the changes had started small. A few shipping routes adjusted here and there. Some mining operations that suddenly became more efficient. Communication networks that stopped having mysterious delays. Nothing dramatic. Nothing that couldn't be explained as normal business improvements. But the Hive Cluster's slave markets had closed permanently. The Zephyrian price manipulation schemes had ended overnight. The Velnari information monopolies had been broken up and redistributed. All very quietly. All very professionally. All very thoroughly. Ambassador Stone called a familiar voice. Ambassador Zixthon approached, his blue skin showing healthy purple patches now instead of the sickly yellows and greens from months ago. The council is ready for your morning briefing. Thank you, Zixthon, Ben replied. The alien had adapted faster than most, smart enough to understand the new order, wise enough to work with it instead of against it. They entered the council, chamber where 17 species waited. But the room felt different now. Less like a comfortable meeting hall and more like what it had always been. A place where predators decided how to divide territory and resources. Council Leader Mordun stood as Ben entered. Ambassador Stone, we have the quarterly reports you requested. Ben took his seat at the head table. 6 months ago, there had been no head table. All species had been equal. But equality was an illusion that only worked when no one was willing to test it. Dr. Amy Fox was already at her console, reviewing data streams from across the galaxy. Her Institute for Interspecies Behavioral Studies had become the most requested educational program in council space. Every species wanted to understand pack dynamics now. They wanted to learn the difference between cooperation and submission. The Zephyrian mining output is up 18%, she reported. Productivity improved dramatically once they stopped spending resources on market manipulation schemes. And the Hive Cluster agricultural program? Ben asked. 23% increase in food production. Turns out workers perform better when they're not slaves. Amy's voice was dry. Who could have predicted that? Sam Rivers entered the chamber from a side door. His pale eyes swept the room before he nodded. To Ben, perimeter secure. Ghost Pack reports all normal. The wolves had become a permanent presence on Nexus Prime. Not guards exactly. More like environmental factors, like gravity or atmospheric pressure. Just part of how the station worked now. Kate, Nash looked up from her medical reports. The mental health improvements continue across all species. Anxiety levels down, depression cases dropping, suicide rates at historic lows. Interesting, Ben said. Any theories why? Clarity, Kate replied simply. For the first time in centuries, every species knows exactly where they stand in the social order. No more confusion, no more false hopes, no more pretending that the universe is fair. Council member Thekmore raised one rocky hand. Ambassador Stone, the Outer Rim colonies are requesting human oversight for their new mining operations. Approved, Ben said without hesitation. Sam, pick a team. Something tells me they'll need people who understand territory disputes. Already identified the candidates, Sam replied. All former military, all experienced with pack tactics, all very good at explaining why cooperation benefits everyone. Velsera's tentacles moved in patterns that meant nervous respect. The Tri-State Commerce Guild wants to hire human negotiators for their trade disputes. Dr. Fox can recommend some specialists, Ben said. I believe her students are eager for practical experience. The morning continued with similar requests. Security, consultations, economic advisories, territorial mediations. The galaxy had discovered that humans were very good at solving problems that had seemed impossible before, mostly because humans didn't see them as problems. They saw them as hunting opportunities. Any other business? Ben asked as the session wound down. One item, Morden said carefully. The Andromedans have sent another diplomatic inquiry. They want to establish trade relations with the Council. Ben smiled. The Andromedans were a young species from a nearby galaxy, aggressive, expansionist, confident in their military superiority. They reminded him of humans before they learned to work with wolves. Interesting timing, Ben mused. Send them the standard invitation, full diplomatic honors. I'm sure they'll find our council fascinating. Should we warn them about the protocols? Zixthon asked. Warn them about what? Amy looked genuinely confused. That we expect civilized behavior? That we have high standards for membership? That we take security seriously? I think they'll figure it out, Sam said quietly. Most species do. Ghost lifted his head from where he had been resting beside Ben's chair. The big wolf's yellow eyes were fixed on something only he could see, or smell, or sense through whatever connection linked predators to their prey across vast distances. Problem? Ben asked. Ghost's tail moved once. A signal that meant opportunity in the language that humans and wolves had developed over 50,000 years of partnership. No problem, Ben said to the council. Just business. After the session ended, Ben stood on the observation deck. Looking out at the stars, Ghost joined him, sitting silently beside his partner. In the distance, other wolves moved through Nexus Prime's corridors, patrolling, observing, learning. You know what the funny part is? Ben said to his companion. They still think we're the tame ones. Ghost's ears twitched. If wolves could laugh. Ben was sure this one would be laughing now. The galaxy had learned to fear Earth's wolves. But they had missed the real lesson. Wolves weren't the predators humanity had learned from. Wolves were the predators humanity had taught. Everything else was just details. Ben's communication device chimed. A message from Earth. New diplomatic missions were being prepared. New teams being trained. New partnerships being formed between humans and their oldest allies. The galaxy was a big place, full of opportunities. Full of species that thought they understood civilization, full of prey animals who had forgotten what it meant to be hunted, but they would remember. Ben Stone smiled as he watched the stars. Somewhere out there, the Andromedans were preparing for their first contact with the Galactic Council. They probably thought they would be dealing with soft, civilized bureaucrats. They would learn differently. Ghost stood and padded toward the corridor. Time for another patrol. Another lesson in what the word tame really meant. Another demonstration that the apex predators of Earth had not been eliminated. They had simply learned to wear diplomatic uniforms. The stars watched silently as human and wolf disappeared into the station's depths. Partners in the ancient dance between predator and prey. Teachers and students in the University of Survival. The council had declared Earth tame. Earth's wolves had volunteered to show them how wrong they were.